In today's video, I'm going to share with you how you can create literally over 12 times the net monthly cash flow, the net profit coming into you on a monthly basis, 12 times more than a typical single family long-term rental with just one short-term rental deal. And I know this sounds too good to be true, but I'm going to walk you through how this is possible. And I'm also going to share with you an actual deal that's on the market today that you could purchase that achieves these types of results. So when most people start off buying rental properties, they sort of default to the traditional single family long-term rental type property. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a long way to get to financial freedom.
I'm a big fan of money. I like it. I use it. I have a little. I keep it in a jar on top of my refrigerator. I'd like to put more in that jar.
And when I'm talking to people asking them why they chose to go this way, typically the answer I get is it feels a lot safer than going with short-term rentals, or they don't understand which markets will work the best, or they feel like short-term rentals are going to require a lot more work than long-term rentals. And so they tend to go down this road of a lot less cash flow in exchange that feeling of comfort and that feeling of safety. But what if you could mitigate the risk of owning a short-term rental, set up systems to where it doesn't require a ton of your time, and it could make you potentially 12 times or over 12 times the amount of cash flow on a monthly basis? I would propose that if you understand how to pick the right market and you can capitalize on economies of scale, this is totally doable for you. And I'm a huge fan of case studies, so I'm going to walk you through an actual deal and show you how this is possible. All right, so let's dive right in. This property was actually found by a member of my first vacation rental investment blueprint program, following the systems laid out in that program to narrow down to an ideal type of property. And so you can see this one's located in upstate New York. It's just outside of Rochester. And these are the pictures of the property. And this is a 4-unit property. And it's relatively affordable, and it's also relatively turnkey. You can see it probably needs some work. It's been used as a long-term rental, but it's in great shape. You can see the fixtures and finishes are all relatively newly updated, pretty decent finishes. You know, the LVP flooring, stainless steel appliances, the I think it's quartz countertop. Really nice finishes, nice bathrooms. So it's really set up well as a short-term rental. Probably going to need some updates for sure, but you know, it's not like a full gut rehab or anything like that. So if we go back, we can see it's a 4-unit, it's 9 bedrooms. So there's 3 units that are 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and then there's one that's 3-bedroom, 1-bath. So you can sleep a lot of people in these different units. So after looking at the listing, then the next step in my process is to look at where the property is located in conjunction to other things. So ideally, you want to be just outside of larger cities, so you're close to a population base in an area that has some local draws. And so this is the perfect type of location. You're just outside of Rochester, you're in the Finger Lakes area that has a lot of draws, and you're just at the tip of this Canandaigua, which I'm probably saying that wrong, lake, and you're just a few blocks away from the lake with this property. And so it's a place that a lot of people might visit, and you can verify that by looking at the comps on Airbnb. So from there, I look at the street view because I've never been to this town before, and I want to know, is this a nice neighborhood? You know, if you look at the street view, it's almost like walking down the street, and you can see what type of properties are here, and is the area pretty decently well kept. So, you know, it's looks like a typical nice blue collar area. It's not like a bunch of boarded up houses with cars in the front yards on blocks. It looks to be pretty well kept. So from there, I go to Airdna. And a lot of people ask me, do I rely on Airdna data and how accurate it is? And what I would say is that I use Airdna just to narrow down to an area that has a bunch of potential. You can put in any area and see what the averages are for that area. I don't use Airdna to plug in an address and let Airdna tell me what type of return I'm going to get on that property, because I've seen that granular data to be way off. But I have found that the averages for an area are typically pretty accurate. And so I just want to see if I compare the average purchase price of an area to the average occupancy rate and the average daily rate, is that a really favorable ratio? And so you can see this is 47% occupancy rate. It's definitely a seasonal market, but the average daily rate's $392. So when you multiply those together, that's a pretty good annual income that you're going to make compared to a relatively affordable town. That's what you're looking for. So from there, then I see that there's potential. Then I go to Airbnb. And a lot of times when people are first getting started with short-term rentals, their biggest concern is, what if I buy a property and it doesn't rent? How do I know that it's going to rent? And what I tell them is the comps tell you if your property is going to rent. Because if you're the only Airbnb, like you search Airbnb and there's no other comps around there's no other comparable Airbnbs or comparable properties to yours that are listed on Airbnb and have a history of bookings, then that's a pretty bad sign. You don't want to be the Lone Ranger out there and testing this out. But if you look and you see there's quite a few comps, like here, as we zoom in, you can see there's lots of properties right in this same area, just within a few blocks of our subject property. And they're similar types of properties, and a lot of them have quite a bit of booking history. This one has 62 reviews. This one has 22 reviews. There's some that are new here. This one has 101 reviews, 31, 44. So there's quite a few others that have a performance track record, and you can use to understand what you could expect if you were to list your property in that area as well. So I pulled up just a few of them here that I think are similar types of properties. Here's a 2-bedroom rental unit. Here's a 2-bedroom loft. These are all just within a couple blocks. Here's a 2-bedroom. And this, I look for properties that have a lot of reviews. This has 44 all 5-star reviews. So this host is doing something right. The guests really love this property. And so if you provide a similar type of product, you can expect similar results. Here's another 2-bedroom, 2-bath that has all 5-star reviews after 15. And so what I do in these situations is I scroll down and I look at their price points in different seasons. So right now we're in August. So I think it's August 16th today. So you can see the next week and a half or week is booked out. Then there's a couple days open at the beginning of that week. And then you've got another booking. And then you've got some bookings coming up in September. So this is ideally what you want to see. This is how you know that the price point's probably pretty accurate, because they're getting bookings at this price point. So you can check, okay, on the weekends or going into the weekend, they're $239 right now. Weekdays, so they're pretty much at $239. $279 as you get a little bit further into September. They've got some bookings here in October, and they're at $266. So right in that ballpark is where they keep their price point. And then you can scroll down and look at every review. And you can see when the reviews were left too. So if you're concerned, will people be booking in certain seasons? Well, you can see exactly when people stayed at this property and how many people stayed per month. So you can see this was a week ago, this was 3 weeks ago, July. So you can go back through all the reviews and you can see when they were left and then what people say about the property. So you can find properties like this that are rated really high and see what people love about the property and mimic what works in that market and produce a similar result. So then from there, you can plug your numbers in. And this is our vacation rental investment blueprint analyzer. And so on the first page, then we just put in the basic information. So the property was listed for $400,000. Again, that's basically $100,000 per unit. But let's just assume you could get it at $375,000. It's been on the market for a few weeks now. Closing costs estimate of about $15,000. After repair value of $475,000 once everything's fixed up and it's booking out. You can just put in an estimate, or you can see what the property taxes are on the listing and an estimate for insurance. Then repair costs. I always just put in an estimate, conservative estimate, based on what I think the repair costs might be. So let's just say across all 4 units, you were going to go $70,000, which is a really healthy repair budget, especially on a property that's relatively turnkey, and then another $40,000 to furnish the property. So then we go down to the financing section, and pretty much anyone, no matter if you have a W-2 job or you don't, whatever your financial situation is, most people would qualify for a DSCR loan. Now, if you have a history of defaults on your credit score or on your credit report, you might not. But beyond that, what a DSCR lender is looking for is a property that cash flows really well. So this would definitely fall into that category, and 99% of DSCR lenders would be happy to do a deal like this. And so what a DSCR lender is going to do is give you 80% of the purchase price. So in this case, that's $300,000. So you would have to come up with $75,000 either yourself or go to a partner who could put up that $75,000 and maybe split this deal with you, or take a second loan at a higher interest rate or something like that. So right now, DSCR loans are around 7.5%, but that fluctuates obviously based on where interest rates go. The next tab of the spreadsheet, then, you put in what you would anticipate the nightly rates to be. So based on all these comps that you just looked at, you could see, okay, in the high season, this is what I would expect on average between weekdays and weekends. And then in the low season, you could look, based on Airdna data, it tells you the lowest season for this one is January. So you could look at all the booking or the price points in January across all of the comps and get a really good idea of where the average price point would be in January. And you could plug in then an occupancy rate based on, how many bookings there are in each of those months historically. So if you do all that, this property equates to about $135,000 of gross income before your cleaning fees, because this is just nightly rate. And I always recommend using a very conservative nightly rate. So you could see a lot of the comps had a higher nightly rate than what we're plugging in here, but I always want to use the most conservative numbers possible. So then you plug in your cleaning fee that you would expect to pay. And again, this is a conservative cleaning fee, but let's just say there's 32 cleanings per month in the high season, 10 in the low season. So you make an extra $25,000 of revenue from that, which you're going to eventually pay your cleaner, but it is revenue. So now we're grossing $161,330 total in income, which is $13,444 per month on this $375,000 property, which is pretty nice gross income. But I don't really care about gross income. What I'm always concerned about is net income. What is the profit that you're putting in your pocket that you can actually live off of each month? And so then you go down to your expenses and subtract out your expenses. So automatically this will calculate your mortgage expense, your insurance, your property taxes, your cleaning fees. These are all based on the information that you already put in. And then you can input your utilities and Wi-Fi cost, lawn care and snow removal, consumables like cleaning products and toilet paper, paper towels, stuff like that. And then I put in a healthy maintenance budget, monthly maintenance budget. So $600 a month. There might be months where you spend $0 on maintenance, and then there'll be months where you replace a roof. So it's really good to count that as an expense. And I like to, again, err on the high side. So if that's the case, that means $7,110 in expenses. So then we can go to the deal calculations and see that this property, if we hit these very conservative numbers, would bring in $161,000. The costs on a monthly or on an annual basis would be $85,000. So we'd be left with $76,000 of net profit or cash flow at the end of the year, which equates to $63.34 per month. That's a 38% cash on cash return after the down payment, all the money you put into furnishing, all the money you put into rehab, all that cash that you put into this deal, you're still making 38% on that cash, which is a really nice cash on cash return and obviously a really nice net cash flow. Now, I say that this type of property makes over 12 times the amount of a typical long-term single-family home, because a really good long-term single-family rental right now, if it made $500 a month of net cash flow, that would be considered really, really good. So you can see this one deal can make over 12 times that much. So you can cut the time that it takes you to get to financial freedom by a tiny fraction if you focus on doing deals like this, as opposed to focusing on building individual single-family long-term rental portfolios. Also, it's kind of ironic because a lot of people tell me the reason they get into the traditional long-term single-family rentals is because they feel like it's going to be safer and require a lot less work than short-term rentals. I think the work stems from having a worse deal, because now you have to buy a whole bunch of deals to create this type of cash flow, and that's going to require a lot more work. If you have to buy 12 single-family homes compared to just this one 4-unit, it's going to require a lot more work. And also, from a safety standpoint, if you have this much cash flow, and at the same time, you could always convert this to a long-term rental and the numbers still would work. It would still cash flow. So as a backup plan, you're still in a very safe position, but using it as a short-term rental puts you in an extremely safe position because you're bringing in so much income. You can make a really big mistake on a deal like this and survive just fine and it not really impact you. It's a small bump in the road because you're bringing in so much income on a monthly basis. So I teach people exactly how to find and buy properties just like this one in my first vacation rental investment blueprint program. It's a program where I work with you personally through the steps of buying your first really high cash flowing short-term rental. So if you're interested in that program, you can go to livingoffrentals.com/call. There's a short questionnaire there. You can fill out the questionnaire and then you get access to my calendar and you can book a call directly with me and we can talk through what your goals are and I can share the details of the program and see if it's a good fit for you. Thanks again for joining me in this video. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.